Z Junkie. This podcast today is on intimacy. Let's see. I thought I was the most intimate, most service-orientated person on planet Earth. I mean, that's what I really thought. I mean, I served that, I thought that, and I thought that as to be true. However, when I walked through the doors of recovery, through the doors into fellowship that matches being a junkie, if you have something with food, then you go to that matches that. Gambling, you get to something that matches that. Alcohol, you get to something that matches that. Sex, you get something that matches that. But when I walk through the doors of the fellowship of my choosing, the program, which is the 12 steps. You see, there's the fellowship and there's the program. The program, teaches me 95% of whatever it is that I learn in recovery. The other 5% comes from use, comes from other people. So I always thought if 5% only came from use and 95% came from the God of my understanding, well, I don't really have to pay attention to use too much. But no, that's not the case. What the case is that I don't know when the gold nugget's coming. So I had to learn to actually be present. And I really needed to listen, because if it did come from you guys 100% of the times, that means I could dip in and out when I felt like it. But when it only 5% comes, and that 5% is crucial, that 5% could take me back out again. I need to listen and I need to be present. But this is a podcast on intimacy. So yes, I thought I was the most intimate and service-orientated person on planet Earth. It's funny because that would be impossible to do. You see, the steps revealed to me that, and the hindsight of over half a century, made it an inarguable truth that I've been tripping through this lifetime and tripping through this planet, somewhere between an unhealthy 5-year-old and an unhealthy 12-year-old. So if I'm operating probably at best on an unhealthy 7-year-old. So if I'm operating between an unhealthy 5-year-old and an unhealthy 12-year-old, that probably says it right there about the intimacy and my service. It was an inarguable truth. The only thing that's different, is my physical. My emotional, my mental, and my spiritual was that of an unhealthy 7-year-old. Well, why is that? Well, you see, it was hard for me to see that because, I could always surround the addiction by way of choice. I make my own or not. When I made it my own, which was more times than not, in a half a century, when I was using at least a solid 40, I'd put a dance around it, I'd have the cars, I'd own the homes, I'd have the bank accounts, You know what I mean? Now ex-wife, I'm newly married, so to speak, next to last marriage, which was, 15, 20 years ago. So I had these things, and that was a dance I put around it. You know what I mean? But the bottom line was, when it was time to getting and finding ways and means of doing more, and you didn't assist in that, you got in the way of that or tried to stop that, you see, I would jump up and down like a 7-year-old. Doesn't matter what magnificent home I was in, what mad car I was driving, what accounts. No. You see, and when a 191-pound male jumps up and down like a 7-year-old, I ended up in cuffs a lot and taken down to the cop shop more times than not. So looking back on those times, I couldn't argue. The hindsight's an inarguable truth that that's what happened. I don't care what dance I put around it. When it was times of finding ways and means of getting more, I jumped up and down if it wasn't being met. And I ended up in cuffs a lot. The extent of my service. Well, my extent of my service kind of looks like this. I mean, I really thought I was a service-oriented person, you know what I mean, coming in. But this, doing the working and the writing and the sharing and the actual application, making that into a lifestyle, has shown me the extent of my service is that if I was coming from Harlem, okay, and coming over to GW, if we were paranoid, we'd be coming through the Lincoln Tunnel. Or if I was coming up from the Lower East Side and coming through the Holland Tunnel, okay, the minute we got over there, somebody wanted to shoot their stuff, okay? There was many times when it took longer than it should have. I looked in the gas station bathroom and somebody's either floundering or somebody's OD'd. And the extent of my service was, yeah. That's how service-oriented I was. I was a disservice. It was funny because the third step, when I turn my will and my power over to the care of the God of my understanding. I'll get into the will part on another cast, but I want to stay focused on the intimacy. You see, when I was writing that step, during that step, when I was reading and writing it yet, I haven't shared it yet, I haven't put anything in actual application, and I was nowhere near putting it into a lifestyle. When I was writing on that step, and during that time, I was outside, and the God of my understanding just sat down in front of me. And I needed to get into acceptance about something, about that intimacy. You see, he revealed to me that my most intimate relationship, okay, for the last couple decades, inarguably, was with my set, was with my rig. You see, I would do anything to fill her. I would do anything to shoot her. I'd do anything to protect her. But he said, Z, it isn't a her. It's an it. Okay? It's an object. Okay? So I had to get with the most intimate relationship I had for decades. That nothing superseded. No God, no person. When it came for ways and means of getting and doing more, was my rig. So my love affair and my intimacy on the deepest level could only be with that of an object. I don't know. Maybe one's object that's seeing this is food. Maybe drive-by windows is your thing. Maybe it's alcohol. Maybe it's gambling. Maybe it's sex. Maybe it's codependent relationships, which is the most brutal. Out of all those I just mentioned, don't ever be mistaken about the codependent relationship. It breeds one of the most brutal resentments that really, from my experience, can only be quenched by murder, either literally or figuratively in one's mind. Yeah, so don't just pass that on if that's like nothing. Getting back to me, so my most intimate relationship was with my set. So I need to get into the principles of the first step. I need to just honestly accept that and surrender the thinking and the feeling and all the behavior that surrounded that for the last half century to the God of my understanding, praying only for his forgiveness and only for the knowledge of his will and only for his power to be carried out in me. That's just not a well-memorized prayer. That's the first application. This was years ago when this went down, okay? Since I have years in recovery, okay, there's also a history there and an inarguable hindsight, just as there was in the half century of using, okay? I both now, because I'm counting years instead of days, there becomes a history, there becomes a past that's beautiful. So I need to honestly accept and surrender that, completely free to paying only for his forgiveness and only for the knowledge of his will and his power to be carried out in me. That was the first application for any other application to take place. You see, in the fourth step, the God of my understanding showed me and revealed to me that anything other than acceptance is a fight. And if I do anything other than get into honest acceptance and surrender, the only experience I will have okay, is experiencing jails, institutions, and death for everything they have to offer until one of them becomes irreversible. Oh, I could write something from here to Jupiter what leads to that, but it's going to lead to that. So I really need this understanding. So the first intimacy I've ever experienced, the first faith I've ever experienced, the first trust I ever experienced, the first commitment I ever experienced was that in which he showed me. I didn't experience those from any man / woman, okay? My first experience with that was with God of my understanding. He showed me, now that I've shown him. I've shown him that faith, that trust, that commitment, which equals the intimacy. In the fourth step, I needed this understanding in the third step. These steps are in order for a reason. Whew. Trust me, they're in order for a reason. You know what I mean? The honesty, the acceptance, and the surrender of that first step, and writing on that, sharing that, reading about that, actual application, making that become a lifestyle until that becomes comfortable. Moving on to the second step. Becoming open-minded and willing. The second step, becoming open-minded and willing. That maybe, just maybe, there's a power greater out there that's greater than myself that could restore me to sanity. And there's the hope. And then the third, the faith, trust, and commitment. So that faith, trust, and commitment and that intimacy was shown by the God of my understanding to me. That I now show him. So into the fourth step, my fourth step was 110 pages. Okay. And I go back to bike and tree. I talked about that in The Obsession is Real. Okay. So 110 pages, okay, of the fourth step got me through my confusion, the dance, and the mystery. And when I get through that, I end up at bike and tree. There is no mystery to the God of my understanding. There is no dance to the God of my understanding. There is no confusion to the God of my understanding. 110 pages brought me to this. One is that since I ripped off my first Cookie Monster in second grade, okay, I've been setting yous and institutions up to treat me a certain way so I could resent you. And that always would justify my ways and means of getting to and doing more. So setting people up since second grade to treat me a certain way so I could resent you. And then that would justify my ways and means of getting and doing more. But there's something else that the fourth step is the sex. Okay, I thought I was the most intimate person, right? Well, the sex part of the fourth step showed me the only reason why I use sex is because if I could get into you, okay, I could suck the life out of you that much faster. Oh man, that sounds harsh. No, it's that clarity. It's bike and tree. See, I need to honestly accept the first thing I just got done talking about, and I need to accept what it is that I just spoke about. I need to honestly get into acceptance and surrender that. Did I have intentions of love? Did I have intentions of a home instead of house? Because that's all it was shells of a house. Okay, did I have intentions? Yeah, but they were lies. Because nothing ever superseded the ways and means of getting and doing more. And what I just spoke about sucking the life out of someone if I could get in them, is what it always boiled down to. I blew everything up within 18 months to 2 years. So it was great, and it was an understanding, because the understanding in the third, and these two understandings in the fourth that I just spoke about, see, when I get into honest acceptance about them and surrender them to the God of my understanding, the God of my understanding says to me, see, hey, we could get busy now. We can get busy. When you're in a fight, we can't get busy. You think I'm my frustration, he shows me his frustration. Of wanting the relationship with me that I can't get into because I'm in a fight all the time. And I just can't get into acceptance. It's interesting because my fifth step, okay, which is really, really urged to do promptly after your fourth, which is the sharing of the fourth. The fourth step is courage. Period. Courage. And I always thought that courage was fighting. I thought I fight everything. That's courage. Well, I had to drop that too, because the God of my understanding very early on in my recovery let me know that I never survived one obsession I ever fought. So if courage is fighting, it doesn't apply anymore. And hindsight makes that an inarguable truth. So where did my courage come from? I was walking around blank and void until the third step. It's okay, I kept moving forward anyways. And the third step, okay, that faith, trust, and commitment, where my faith is, okay, with the God of my understanding, so there will be my courage. And when my courage gets complete or near complete, it's because my faith is getting near complete. I don't want to say complete because it's too near the perfect. I don't go there. But on some level where they're high in what I'm doing, the God of my understanding has me moving into something else where my faith is low and my courage is low. And I begin the process again. Until the faith gets real high again, and it's like brushing my teeth. And then I move into an area where there is no faith and there is no courage. And that self-discipline of the 10th step is so needed because that's what I need in order to get to brushing my teeth again in that area. And then the God of my understanding will move me on to something else. But the 5th step is sharing the 4th step. The 5th step is perseverance. That's that principle in the 5th step. Perseverance. It says we share, okay, with God, ourselves, and another person, that 4th step. So we share with God, we admit to God, ourselves, and to another human being, okay, the exact nature of our wrongs. Okay? Exact nature of my wrongs. I mean, everybody knew what I was doing when I was ripping and running. I was a junkie. No. You see, you have to go deep. You have to write. You see, thinking and speaking is only going to take me so far. It's when the pen hits the paper is when I start getting deep. You see, I'd be admiring your inventory in your store, right? And you'd be thinking, I'm really admiring it, No, I'm casing it. Okay, my mother thought I was really enjoying her conversation, but I need to rip her off. You see, my insides never match my outsides. Ever. They never match. I always edited because I was always on the mission of ways and means of getting more of the drug. Maybe someone looking at this is the food or the alcohol or the gambling or the sex or the codependent. Let me go pick up another codependent relationship. It could go on and on and on and on, whatever your fancy is. Getting back to intimacy, I shared my 4th step, meaning doing my 5th step. Okay, because I was in between sponsors. It's just how it was. With the one I am now married to. And sharing that with her has brought the honesty, the acceptance, the surrender, the open-mindedness, the willingness, and the hope, the faith, trust, and commitment, and the courage to experience an intimacy with each other because it was based on honesty. 110 pages I share with her. I've never done that before. The God of my understanding cleared the way for that. That's why it's crucial to get into the steps and get the God of your understanding and a relationship going on, because it's in times in which I'm just talking about that only the God of my understanding would have cleared the way for me. Okay? Me and the one who I'm married about, we look at each other and the intimacy just gets deeper and deeper and deeper, and sometimes we just look at each other and we start crying because it's the permafrost, it's the frozen zone that's melting. Intimacy. I'll wrap it up like this. The intimacy I experienced with the God of my understanding in the 3rd step, okay, allowed me to understand there's appropriate intimacies. Okay, the intimacy I have with the person checking me out in Walmart is going to be different than the intimacy I have with my sponsee. The intimacy I have with my sponsee, okay, it's going to be appropriate to that, but different than the one I have with my sponsor. Okay, the appropriate intimacy I have with my sponsor is going to be different than that of I have with my sponsee or the person checking me out in Walmart. The only place where appropriate intimacy has no application is to the one who I'm married to and the God of my understanding. You see, she knows what the God of my understanding knows about me, and that's everything. Do you know what it is to come home and not to be on? When the one you're married to knows everything and honestly accepts that. God, there's no words. Intimacy